Welcome everyone. Welcome to Crack Code Interview Problems in Rust episode. Rust. I was doing Rust
stream.
Crack. Wrong stream. Wrong people. Crack Code Interview Problems in Python episode 3. This is your chance to learn from experts around how we can solve the kind of problems you may get in a coding interview. Now, this is an open stream. We want you to be involved. We want to chat with you. So please feel free to dive into the chat, ask your questions of our experts. We might ask you questions. We want to learn from you. We want to help you learn from us. But I have to ask that you abide by our code of conduct, which is pinned in the chat. Basically, don't be a jerk or we'll kick you off and ban you from Microsoft events. So with that, welcome to today's stream. I'm really excited. If you joined us for the last 2 episodes of this series, I had a different guest for each show. I now have them both. So this should be a lot of fun as 2 folks with different skill sets approach the problem in different ways. So welcome, Jay, and welcome, Sarah. Do you want to introduce yourself? Let's do this alphabetically. Jay, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Jay. I'm a cloud advocate. My pronouns are they, them. I wind up often getting on stage and doing stand-up comedy in the form of Python. I'm just kidding. I do a lot of web-based development and automation style development, and enjoy getting on calls like this, especially when I get to hang out with the next person to be introduced, which is Dr. Sarah Kaiser.
Hey everybody, I'm Sarah. I also love hanging out with Jay. We work together a lot and solve perhaps a lot of problems together. So this is right up our alley. I'm also a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. We're focusing on Python, and I kind of come from a scientific research background. So I have a PhD in quantum computing, but mostly I really like playing around in Python in Jupyter Notebooks. That's way more fun. So, yeah.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you both for joining me today. Really appreciate you taking the time for this. And a question for our audience. Oh, Nicole Tester says that was fun joke. Awesome. Welcome, Nicole. Welcome. And Crypto Uni's back. Woo! And here we go again. Hold on, Python. Isn't this about Rust? Just kidding. Happy to be here. So Crypto Uni's been joining my Rust versions of these streams, which I've run the last few weeks. Rounded that off 2 days ago. And you can catch the Rust ones if you're a Rust aficionado on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. But yeah, welcome everyone. Please jump in the chats. Let us know where in the world you are. We get folks from all around the world, so it's really cool to see where in the world you are. And let us know whether you joined us for any of the last 2 episodes. So we can kind of see who's seen what we've done so far, who's new to this. And then let us know what your skills with Python are. Yeah, we'd love to find out. Are you deeply experienced with Python? Are you new to it? And also, where are you in your career? Are you somebody who is looking at this because you've got coding interviews coming up, or you're starting to think about careers in tech or career change? So let us know, and we can kind of help answer your questions. But as mentioned earlier, this is your chance to ask questions. If you came to the last 2 streams, we completely failed to solve a problem twice because we're too busy chatting with everyone. So please, we're here to answer your questions and help you. We want to have fun with you. So don't be shy. Put your questions in the chat, and we will do our best to help. Kevin K is in San Diego.
Shout out to San Diego. I'm in North County. Let's go.
Hey. Nicole Test is in Los Angeles. So definitely got some California.
We don't talk about Los Angeles that much.
Oh, and Sarah Kaiser is in Seattle. Okay, welcome.
I was seeing if you'd find it.
Yeah, I keep my eye on the chat. I'm watching you. Crypto Uni says, "Hey Jim, time for some lot shilling. Just go ahead, man." Okay, yeah. Oh, it should be fun. Aldo Garcia is in Miami, Florida, other side of the country. So Kevin K is doing QI Skip Python Open Chasm and Penny Lane. Okay, I know the
quantum open source packages.
Okay, I have not come across those. What do they do?
Quantum computing.
Quantum things.
Quantum things. I guess OpenQASM, is that like Open Quantum Assembler type thing?
Yeah, that's what the acronym stands for. There's a number of different intermediate representations like that, QIR, that are really exciting, and I could go on for a whole nother show.
in the WASM space, I don't know about the QASM space, but in the WASM space, the website of things, PyScript just went public. I think V1 now, so I'm excited about that a little bit. I don't know. Every time when I see anything with ASM, I'm like, yes, we're doing ASM things. I don't know what any of it is, but we're doing it.
Yeah, I did a stream. Well, I just dabbled a bit with PyScript a while ago, just to kind of try it out, and it's pretty cool. So for those who haven't heard about it, PyScript allows you to run Python code in your browser via C Python implementation in WASM. I'm going to put a link in the chat to everyone, but that is pretty cool. Nicole Tester says, "Hey." Alistair C says, "Hello from London." Hello there, Governor. Great to have you here with us. Awesome. Joe Bell's from the great state of Massachusetts. So again, nice to have folks from both sides of the country and across the world. Liz Weiss from Toronto, welcome. Scott McKeon from Portland. Hey, Scott. Scott joined for the Rust streams as well. So glad to have you here learning about Python. Daniel's in San Jose, California. And Joseph Fujimoto's in Oakland. So some more California love going on there. Nice. Mr. Maniac 90's in Berlin. Dariush Farkish is in Irvine, California. Okay, Crypto Uni saying no lot shilling IoT for beginners. Great course. Yes, shout out to my IoT course. I won't promote that too often. I mean, it's got some Python stuff in it, so maybe I should. But no,
I've been seeing some light stuff on Twitter, right, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of stuff with lights and IoT bits and pieces. Sometimes in Python, sometimes in Rust. So the lights I've got behind me, these are actually I've got buttons to control the color, which is not coming out very clearly at the moment. But all this control for the lights, that's all written in Rust. It was done in Python originally. Now it's all Rust. But yeah, I try and do lights and stuff with Python. Because who doesn't love lights? Who does not love lights? Cool. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome folks who are here. We are here to hopefully crack a code interview problem in Python. So the last couple of episodes, we've been trying to solve one problem. So for folks who end up doing software engineering interviews, there's a high chance that you might be asked to solve some kind of LeetCode, HackerRank, or similar coding problem. Usually this tests your knowledge of data structures and algorithms, and whether you can remember what a linked list is. There are many views on whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. We all have thoughts on this. If you want to dive into that, love it if you could share your thoughts and experiences in the chat. If you've been to these kind of interviews where you had to do these kind of coding tests, was it good? Was it bad? If you're an interviewer, why do you and you use these tests? Why do you like using them? Love to kind of dive into some of that. But yeah, we tried to look at one of these coding problems, and the one we've been trying to look at is a Sudoku validator. So the idea is, if you have a 9x9 initial Sudoku board, we want to test whether it's valid or not. As in, is this a board that could theoretically be solvable? We're not trying to solve it, not trying to prove whether it can be solved. We're just trying to see whether the board is valid. And the rules are, with Sudoku, you have a 9x9 grid made up of 9 3x3 grids. Each horizontal line has to contain the numbers 1 to 9. Each vertical line has to contain the numbers 1 to 9. And each square has to contain the numbers 1 to 9. You cannot have duplicates. So this board here is valid. This board here is not, because in this square here, we've got 2 6s, which means we've also got 2 6s across here and 2 6s down here. So this is invalid board. And all we have to do is, when given a board, return true or false. That's the problem that we've been looking at. And we didn't get very far, did we, folks? Jay, you're talking, but I cannot hear you.
Yep. Multiple mute buttons. It's a dangerous thing. Yeah, I don't know if we tried to solve the problem. We just tried to create more, which is the definition of programming, it would seem.
Yeah. So Jay, we started off a couple of weeks ago talking about data classes as a way to solve this, and then Sarah, you jumped in last week with your numpy magic, your data science magic, and started coming up with a different way to solve this problem. So I'm curious, do you want to both of you just talk through your initial thoughts and how you thought you might want to solve this? I guess Jay, you started first with data classes. Do you want to talk through your thoughts behind this?
So I made the grave mistake of not reading the assignment.
Top tip, folks, in an interview, read the assignment.
Yeah. Or at least ask questions if you aren't sure to what scope. And that's the other thing, is these interviews are usually designed to get you to ask questions or get you to kind of figure out what kind of questions you ask. And for me, I was thinking of this in a how do I solve the problem while leaving the door open to do more work, or to keep the functionality stable if more work was, if there was a potential to do something else with it. And I've actually had that happen to me before inside of like an interview where it was like, I've solved the problem. Haha, I win. And then they're like, now what if we wanted to do this? And I'm like, well, darn, now I can't use that solution. I need to use the other solution. So since then, I've always tried to leave space open. So I opted to go for a data class approach, because what it would do is it would give us a little bit of opportunity to create validation. So of course, as you're building these rows out, you can say, I have these rows. These rows live on a 3-portion axis of what block they're in, what row they're in, and what grid they're in. And then simply put, you have a game class that has all the blocks, all the rows, all the columns. And as you're entering data, you would simply check against those rows and columns for existing pieces. If they exist, then awesome. Now you raise a validation error that says, hey, you can't have more than one instance of this integer inside of this row. And that's the thing I liked about my solution, is that it allows you to have as much information as possible while also completing the assignment, because then you're able to say you have, like, I guess in the second example, there were 2 6s in like the middle row of blocks. So instead of just saying this is invalid, you could say this is invalid. You can't have 2 6s in column 5. I think that's column 5. Yeah, in column 5. And then you can say, there's a 6 at column 5 index, block 6 or block 5, column 5, row 4, and then same thing, row 10, column 5, yada yada yada. So to me, that's where I was thinking of, like, okay, this is designed so that even as you're inputting these values in manually, you could also continue and say, let me add more numbers. And as I'm adding more numbers, it would continue to validate. So it would solve the immediate problem of like, hey, is this setup valid? It would tell you as soon as you got to a non-valid instance, but it would also be the exact same code that would allow you to continue playing the game all the way until it's finished.
So when you're playing the game, if you make a mistake whilst playing it, it doesn't just say you've made a mistake. It actually highlights where you've made the mistake, so you can see what number you need to fix.
Exactly.
That's the idea. Okay. That's pretty cool. And as you say, it's not just about can I solve the initial problem, but can I be prepared for what might be the next stage? And chances are, an interviewer, when you solve a problem, is going to ask you, what about the next thing? What about the next thing? What about the next thing? So that's one very cool approach. Corey's in the chat. Corey says, go Jay, go. Welcome, Corey. So Corey is my counterpart in Stockholm. Welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Still trying to get that React event in Stockholm. We'll get there. Call me, Corey. Call me.
Okay, cool. So we talked about So Joe, this is kind of your thoughts on how to do it with data classes that have the validation rules in place. Sarah, you came at this from a different angle. So do you want to talk through what your thoughts were?
Sure. Pretty briefly, especially when I'm in interview situations, I tend to make things way too complicated. Like, I'm thinking a lot of the things maybe that like Jay was talking about, but I just like very often can't get my brain organized well enough in that very short and stressful amount of time. So I really have to kind of push myself to be like, what is the bare minimum here? Which pretty much always is like looping through something, or, you know, very imperative programming sorts of approaches. So basically, my plan was to, you have an index through 9, 0 indexed, so 0 anyway, that would basically end a function that checks if a set of 9 things is valid, and just go through 0 through a whatever, go through all the rows and columns with that single index, and at every kind of index check that row, that column, and then that block effectively. So kind of the only tricky part is making sure you're kind of indexing into the blocks and stuff. But because the puzzle is represented as like a numpy array, taking slices for rows and columns and stuff really isn't too bad. So that was kind of the quick I've literally been in interviews where they're like, make it simpler. And I'm like, well, but this would be make it simpler. I'm like, okay, all right. I mean, very often you don't, at least in my experience, you don't actually finish the whole problem in the time, because very often you have only like 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, but they also have a lot of other like questions often that they're going to ask you. So yeah, I find it's better to at least get the quick and dirty one done first, and then can talk about other extensions. But if you can do the both at the same time, great.
Okay. So essentially, what you're talking about is leveraging the features of NumPy, isn't it? This has the ability, you can put the board in NumPy, and in NumPy you can kind of slice and dice it in the directions you need. So it's kind of showing your knowledge of the libraries, the pip packages, which if you're applying for a job where NumPy is used, like a data science type job, this would be quite beneficial in the interview, because you're saying, I know these tools.
Yeah, I think you could probably also do this with lists and lists or something like that. Like, I'm not actually leveraging anything special out of NumPy here. I'm literally just using multi-index stuff. So, but yeah, there are other built-in functions that I could probably do this in one line. So, but that doesn't really help.
Yeah, import numpy.sudoku validator, you know.
Pip install Sudoku validator. Yeah, anyway.
Probably is one you could actually import and just
certainly
using that. So Crypto Uni says, Jay, here's a message from the PM about this. Limit to the sprint scope. No extra features needed. Which kind of is an interesting view on software development as a whole. It's, do you just build what's needed, or do you plan for the future?
I think it depends on the job, though.
Yeah.
Again, if you're going for a software engineering role, 100% do the assignment as the assignment. But I do think that, you know, Sarah and I are both advocates. Our job is often to create iterative works. So we're rarely ever build the project is built, and now we move on. And in fact, the more that we do that, usually the more we set ourselves up for failure. Because then the following year it's, oh, there's a new feature that we need to roll out or we need to implement in this project, and we wind up having to almost rebuild the entire project because we didn't design it with scalability in mind or flexibility in mind, or hey, what if we rip out this one component and add this other component in because that's what we're demoing. I think a good example of this now is when we look at things like choosing different web applications or different database architectures. If I just say, hey, connect to SQL, sure, I could just use, the Python SQL module. But if I wanted to make it easier for myself, maybe I use something like SQL Alchemy or if we're in a space where NoSQL is kind of the deal, we use something like Beanie, which will allow us to migrate our data in an easier format. And also, I do think it does depend, like Sarah said, it depends on what the plan is for the interview. The last few interviews I've had in the past, there are like multiple rounds of you're going to talk to these people and then you're going to come back, and for the next hour we're going to do a coding interview. So that at that point, then you do have that extra time. But I also know that when it's like, hey, let's do a little bit of coding, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, no, fastest answer possible, because they want to have more conversation. They just also need to validate that you kind of know how to program.
Yeah. So fast chat has an interesting point. Sorry, Sarah.
Is it Sudoku time yet?
So fast chat says sometimes using advanced functions could slow down a developer who comes behind you to maintain your code. It's a catch-22 rule. So I guess, again, if you're showing you can code, if you show something advanced, then are you making your code less maintainable?
I like Corey's answer, which is use Sudoku API.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a Python package to the invalidation. Stop the interview here. Cryptuni says no cheating. We have a firewall deny rule for pip.
Yeah, and that's often the problem. Is interview questions will sometimes give you an opportunity to also interview the company and learn a little bit more about their practices. So you could say like, hey, what is our policy on using pip? What is our policy on, maintaining packages? Do we have to rebuild all of our packages? Are we going to be like Meta and basically have our own version of Python that we need to implement that means you don't have access to certain things? I think that a lot of these are, very valid questions that come up in just trying to solve these things. But I agree. I think if we're just solving the problem, Sarah's solutions are definitely faster and would be the one that I would suggest.
So there is actually a PySudoku pip package that solves Sudoku puzzles. And so you give it the puzzle and then...
I don't know if I would trust that, though. It's promoting Python 2.
I mean, it could be fairly old. But yes, this will actually do it. So you just call this, you pass at the board, and it says here that if the board's invalid, when you call the solve function, it will throw an error. So there you go. 2 lines of code.
Yep.
So Cryptuni says, having sometimes been the interviewer, I'd honestly say personally, I don't care so much about the actual solution code, but I do pay attention to how they problem solve and the method. I think that's what's most valuable out of these coding interviews, isn't it? It's the conversation that you're having as you're working through the problem. Rather than just, can you solve the problem? So I guess actually, question for the audience then. Question for the audience. We've had 2 different ways to solve this. Jay's going down the data class route. Sarah's going down the numpy route or the numpy route. So vote now. This is your chance to vote on which one we should try and implement in the next 36 minutes. So
I vote for the numpy route. numpy route.
So in the chat, put data class or numpy or a pie emoji, but let us know which path you want us to take. This could be a bit of fun. Let's be a bit democratic about this. So stick your thoughts in the chat. We'll give you a bit of time to come up with your suggestions, and then okay. So Corey says numpy is life. Scott McKeon says numpy. Cryptuni says let's take the 3rd route, do it in Rust. Wrong show. That's no, Sarah's roots. Bruce W. 2099 says NumPy. Matthew Epi is being controversial, saying J's solution with data classes. And Carderum says NumPy is interesting to see it. So I'm feeling a general leaning towards Sarah's solution here. So
I do have a question on Crypto's answer there of if you are familiar in another language, because this is something that does come up from time to time, where is it ever okay to say, here's where doing it in this other language instead might have some benefits. And I think in the world of like web development and stuff, usually the answer is no, because we're not going to take our entire project that's written in some language and then try to port it over to another language. But I wonder in the data science community, where a lot of things are like notebook interfaced, and we see this happening now where a lot of projects started out in Python are moving over to Rust or moving over to new implementations of, instead of pandas, maybe you're using polars, which is a Rust backed data frame library. So yeah, Sarah, is in the data science world, if someone says, oh, we want to do this in Python, is we could actually do this in Rust, or we could actually do this in some other language, maybe easier, ever a valid answer?
I mean, for things where I've been the interviewer, I would be totally cool with that because I think somebody also said this in chat we talked about, but like really, I feel like the important thing that at least I as the interviewer would want to get out is how people are approaching solving a problem. And if thinking through and being like, well, actually, doing it in this language is a non-starter, if they can give me some good reasons, that sounds great to me. So, I mean, I will admit probably some folks are not going to be as flexible, especially if the role is for a Python developer. You may have to actually code in the language you are applying to write in, but yeah, I would think it would be okay.
Because one thing you were saying last week, Sarah, is for data science, a lot of people using WebAssembly and kind of building pipelines by doing different things in different languages, but coming together using WebAssembly.
Yeah, like just in general, I think data science is very heterogeneous. Like so many different tools, so many different languages. You have R, you have Haskell, like, so you really, Python is a great way, and WebAssembly and some of these new things are a great way to glue them all together. So that's probably going to be a plus if you know how to kind of combine like a PyO3 for Rust and Python.
Cool. CryptoUni is saying, honestly, we've been promoting killing Py and using polars.
Which is a numpy, like array management library, but where the backend's in Rust.
yeah. CryptoUni is a Rust fan, so
I am also a Rust fan. Excellent
Rust
choice.
is awesome. Nicole Tester has an awesome question. On a side note, I've recently had tech interviews, and the interviewer does not want to get involved. How do I get them involved? Ooh.
If they don't want to be involved, I think it depends on who the interviewer is. If it's my hiring manager, if it's one of my colleagues, to me, not to be rude, but that kind of seems like a red flag. Like, why are we doing this interview? I think CryptoUni mentioned this earlier in the chat of like, honestly, you don't care about the actual solution. They want to know how to problem solve a method. And we say it all the time. And I know it's hard when you're in the position of, I don't have the job and I'm looking for the job. But you do have to interview the interviewers as well. It is a moment of, how are you answering the questions that I'm going to ask you? If they're a developer on the team and they don't want to get involved, what that tells me is that I doubt that they would be willing to get involved once you have the job too. It's going to be very much you do your work, I do my work, and ne'er the two shall ever intersect until they absolutely have to. And to me, that's a red flag. But again, I'm in the world of advocacy where collaboration is key. I can't do all the things that Sarah does. I don't want to do all the things that Sarah does because she does a really good job at it. And
I also don't know how to do anything on the web. I can make like a SSG based on Jekyll hosted on GitHub pages, and that is it.
Yeah. So to me, like, I would say that that's a red flag, but that's only because of the field of work that I'm in, where collaboration is 100% of what we do. Like, we're going to be at PyCon, and I believe that I have one repo that I'm going to be presenting, and everything else is code contributed from my colleagues. So absolutely, if they don't want to get involved, if they don't want to, troubleshoot with you, if they don't want to exercise with you, if it's just, can you solve the problem? Then, I mean, again, it really depends on who the interviewer is, and you have to take that into account.
Yeah, I mean, because I always preach this idea that collaboration is the most important thing in software development. Collaboration and communication is the most important thing. It is a team sport. There's the old proverb: if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. And you achieve a lot by collaborating. So if it's a developer on the team and they don't want to get involved, they don't want to have those conversations, then it's a valid question to say to them, why? Why have you been told you're not allowed to do this? Because it could be that's come down from whoever somewhere up top who's decided this is how we're going to interview. But if it's just that, oh no, I don't think it's right, then that is a red flag, because this is a developer on the team that you have to collaborate with. And if they don't want to collaborate with you to help you be successful in the interview, then they're not going to collaborate with you to help you be successful in the day job. CryptoUni has a comment on this, which is the best interview should turn into a coding interview into more of an XP exercise in coding. That's the only way to get a true sense of their problem-solving skills. Yeah, it should be a collaborative exercise between you and the person that you're interviewing with. And Corey gives a shout out to Decoding the Technical Interview Process by Emma Bostian. A great talk on making a better technical interview for interviewers and interviewees. So yeah, anyone watching this who's a technical interviewer, lots of things to think about. Definitely check out that talk. Because being an interviewer is hard. It's really hard. Being a good interviewer is much harder than being a good interviewee. So on that note, Sarah, you're typing. We should probably try and implement this, shouldn't we? We should try and implement this.
I am PMing here. No.
So, Sarah, do you want to talk us through what you're doing?
Yeah. So, basically last time, I think I wrote something that may work. We'll have to test all this, but basically here's a set of 9 things. Does it work? Here's my loop for going through the rows and columns. Checking the rows and columns from there is pretty simple because all you have to do is slice the array. So that means basically you can use indexing to pick a full. So here this would say for the puzzle, grab the ith row and then everything else in that row. That's what the kind of colon notation there means. So that grabs a whole row. If you do that kind of in reverse, as you may expect, that will give you the full column. And then we have the J and K here. Well, here, let me also put a comment real quick, which, okay, I have unlabeled keys on my keyboard.
Coding in hard mode.
Well, yeah, I'm silly like that. So this gives the starting index for each grid. And that basically the / operator here in Python, this would be a thing where, like, I know we are working in Python 3, which is good because this operator, the behavior is different in 2 to 3. I'll show you the keyboard. I have a Ergodox Moonlander split. So this is one half of it. There's another half of it.
Avoid the rabbit hole.
Yeah, don't spend money on keyboards. That's all. With very pedestrian cherry MX Browns, but I'm like that. So this operator does integer division, which basically says divide the two numbers and then like round down to the nearest integer. So basically until you get to 3, this would return 0. So yeah, basically there's that operator and then there is the mod operator. So that's like they are slightly different. Because this one would give you 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. So one thing I was going to ask for help with is one of the assumptions we listed at the beginning was the empty cells should have a 0. So there are lots of things, I think, like intellectually the cell is empty, so having nothing in the list there kind of makes more sense, but it's going to be hard, I think, to get some of the checks here to work out, because can I just open a quick terminal here? Is it going to let me?
You should.
I'm going to request read-write access.
There you
and
go.
Then we'll do RMRF. No, I'm just kidding. We're doing this in live share, which is super cool. So if I and this is what I would do in the interview too, because there's lots of things I don't quite remember. So if I just open ipython real quick, so my question in my head that came up is, how does set handle can it handle a sparse list or array, or a list or array that doesn't have elements in it? Interesting. I can't see where that cursor is on my screen anymore, but let's just try this. So if I do this and I do 1, 2, so there, that would effectively simulate having an empty cell in our grid. And it says it doesn't like this. So I think what would have to do there then is represent the blanks with this. So we have
Sarah,
mm-hmm.
Is that going to cause a problem in the idea of checking the length of the set? Because if you fill it with zeros, you're going to inflate the list of values. So you would have to, I think it's still doable, but I think that there's going to be something you add in that original list, which is, hey, strip out the zeros as well.
Yeah, because if you've got a line that's 0002 00790, the first line, the set of that's going to be 0, 2, 7, and 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
4 entries, whereas the full version is going to have 9 entries.
Yeah. So maybe just even a minor little function in there that just says return this list with all the zeros stripped out, which is not too bad.
All right. So this is good.
Crypto Uni suggests using option. Oh no, wrong language.
Yes.
I don't know what that is. So
it's in Rust.
Which is another. That's another coding interview tip while Sarah is coding that. If you don't know, it is okay to say that you don't know, because that gives you an opportunity to learn something. And learning, or is it knowing, is half the battle? I don't know. Some G.I. Joe reference there.
But also as well, it gives you a chance, Jay, back to your point about you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you.
Yeah.
I don't know this. Please explain it. If they don't want to help you learn something, then that's another red flag about the people that could be on your team. If they can't teach you something, then how are they going to teach you when you're actually there working? How are they going to teach you the code base?
I can go into some detail on that of my interview process. My coding interview for Microsoft was to build a fast API application. And while I have built fast API applications in the past, I had maybe built 1 or 2 that were relatively simple as demos. And there was going to be a lot of questions on how middleware works, because I just don't do a lot of middleware work. So I had to have the interviewer kind of explain to me where the interview, like where the middleware fits. Can't we just sum it? Both sides should be identical anyway.
Yes, because all the zeros would go away then, don't they?
That's
Because
actually,
if you think about it,
but you could, I think you could have a scenario. Hang on, nope. You talk.
not with the set. The set would be a number and the list would be a different number.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, that's inserting some function to validate the list versus the set. I think stripping out the list versus adding all the numbers, they accomplish the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that is an option as well.
I think now's a good thing to point out here is, Sarah, you mentioned one of the assumptions, empty cells have zero. We spoke about this last week, but for the folks who weren't here last week, one thing that's really good when you're doing these kind of tests is to actually document your assumptions, because you're going to be making certain assumptions about the way you're receiving the data. If rules aren't defined, you need to make certain assumptions. So if you document those, whether it's through comments or even just discussing it out loud, you are telling the interviewer, these are the assumptions I'm making, and this is being used to guide my code. You can kind of go back and maybe say, actually, well, I'm going to change my assumption for whatever reason, but just having that there helps explain your code. Because this idea of stripping out the zeros only makes sense if the empty cells have zero. So if you just do that, because in your mind you've decided that the empty cells should be zero, the interviewer is not going to understand why you're doing it. So it's kind of good to document these assumptions.
Also, I just summoned you here because I'm going to quickly change. So Jim helpfully typed up some of the boards.
Sarah, I got you.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. You know I'm a Vim mode user.
Okay, I was just going to use can replace all on spaces.
I mean, that works too. That works too. Actually, you know what? You do you. You go ahead.
Okay.
You go right ahead.
I really like sometimes doing what do you call it? Like kind of typing Olympics or like puzzles where like how do you modify your code in the fewest number of like keystrokes and or things. So
I mean, in Vim it's only 47 keystrokes.
Yeah, but then you're stuck in Vim until you reboot your computer.
It's like, give me 10 minutes while I swap out all of the...
But this is why I really like you can make multi-length cursors in here, and like if you wanted to edit all of these rows at once, there's lots of really cool golf. Yeah. There should just be generic like VS Code golf. Yeah, I'm gonna work on that.
So Nicole Tessa says Vim. Do you mean Vi? Vim is Vi improved, isn't it?
Yes, and then Neo Vim is new Vi improved.
Sounds like you had to iterate on that a lot.
So Crypto Uni says, totally agree. You must use the interview as an opportunity to also check if that company is a right fit for you. Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, these are the people you'll be spending 40 hours a week of your time with. These are the people who are going to help define, or at least try and align with your values. They're going to try and they have influence on your self-worth. There's so much a bad job can do to damage your mental health, and so much a good job can do to support it. You spend a large portion of your time at work. You don't want to be working somewhere that is not a good place to work with people who don't want to collaborate with you. So,
I think someone explained it to me from the mindset of, you can leave a company and that company will find someone to take your place. However, when you leave that company, you may decide that you no longer want to be in that industry. Mm-hmm. So picking the right companies always have a bigger payoff for you than it does the company itself, because they can just replace you as a body. But if you have to put in the time to change your entire career path, because of bad experiences. As someone who left marketing for those exact reasons, I definitely I take that as like gospel in many ways of like I interview the companies very, very hard because I know that I'm going to be giving them 40 hours, sometimes more per week of my time and my mental energy. And I'm only giving them that if I think they deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important. It's so important, especially now where tech jobs are not so easy to get. You want to make sure you've got the right one because you don't want to be stuck somewhere you can't leave because you got the mortgage to pay or whatever. So
I like how Corey put it. Yeah, you can leave a company, but the company never leaves you.
Yeah, that's a great way to put that. Nicole Test has a question. Is it VI or VI?
I've always heard it as VI and then Vim. So I feel like they haven't decided yet.
Should be VIM or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And Corey says VI, just like a fine wine, getting better with time.
Sarah, you've been typing a lot. I just want to check to make sure that we're contributing. I feel bad if we're not contributing.
No. I just want to have something to talk about. I'm treating this like an interview. I'm trying to get something on paper here.
I'm treating this like a live stream.
It's like an interview, and your two potential colleagues are there yakking away and ignoring you. Yes, red flags.
Sarah's like, I don't want to work with these two.
No, I love working with you guys. So yeah, all I did was I golfed in some. We'll want to actually put these somewhere. Maybe Jay, maybe you can help with tests.
I've never heard of this term golfing. What is this?
I mean, it's like if you have a par, you can get from this text file to this text file in X number of keystrokes or something like that.
Okay.
Like in golf, the aim is to get the least number of hits of the ball with your golf bat, and the winner is the one who has the least hits of the ball. Same kind of idea. It's the least keystrokes. Mean,
but I always thought golf was so my grandfather would go to sleep.
I mean, I'm not a particular golf fan. But...
Okay, so you said you needed some tests?
Yeah, so if you could add stuff to the test, you've got the test hello thing. But these are almost valid numpy arrays. You just have to wrap them in np.array. And then that should give us things that we can pass in and test here.
Okay.
Joseph asked about what are some red flags to look out for. I always ask them about how they view DNI stuff because I have been burnt by that before, and I want to make sure that, just like somebody just sitting back like this watching me interview and not interacting at all would be a red flag to me. If they don't have an answer to that question, that also makes me a little worried.
I always ask, what are they doing to support developer development? How are developers improving? How are they learning? Is time allotted for them during work hours, or are they expected to do all of their learning off the clock? We know that we do this anyway, but I do find it valuable for companies to invest in making their employees better. So a company that doesn't have an answer for that just says, oh, well, we expect you to stay certified and work on all these things, and we're not going to compensate you for your time in doing that is a gigantic red flag for me. And also I don't do certifications, so that would also be a red flag for me.
Another one I like to ask is why is this position open? And why have people left the company? If there's we're backfilling because someone has moved on to a better job and we're really excited for them, that's a good sign. But if they're like, we have 12 people leave in the past week, so we need some more bodies, that is a bad sign.
Okay. I have to, because I'm in someone else's environment, I have to get all of my things in a row because I have gotten so used to my workflow, which sometimes, I'm not going to lie, includes using GitHub Copilot. So I was like, wait,
turned off. We're coding in.
I typed like a couple of characters and nothing happened, and I was like, wait, what? And it wasn't even like write a test that does this. It was just like def. Where's the rest of my def?
So
resources.
What are you working on?
Python.
Test. Oh yes. Yes, this is from Akash J. So I'd like to ask Jay and other team members if you can recommend some good resources for learning Python, OO programming, and data science and algorithm concepts. Oh, that's a big question.
The data science stuff I will yield to Sarah. The best book that I've gotten that you can get for absolutely free is Beyond the Basic Stuff with Python. It's one of those things that it's going to assume that you know some of the bare essentials, but in terms of being interview ready, Al Swigert is an amazing human being who I've had the opportunity to work with. I tell people I helped inspire this book because I sat with him over lunch at a conference and told him, why are there no like transitioning from junior to mid-level programmer books? And then a year and a half later, he wrote that book. So I told the world, you're welcome.
Take full credit.
Yes. But like data structures and algorithms and stuff, I have no idea. I am absolutely terrible with data structures and algorithms. If it's not in like the core Python library, or if it's not something like iter tools, I probably don't use it all that much. And also I'm a firm believer that like the thing that's nice about the Python community is it obfuscates a lot of the things that you need to know if you couldn't import something by letting you import something. So again, these are good questions for in the interview. I am not the best employee for a company that's like, we don't allow pip installing things, because I rely on pip installing things because I don't want to have to think about, big O notation and things like that. I want to use the module or framework that's thought about that for me.
I mean, one thing to do is LeetCode problems. So you like these things. If you just go onto LeetCode HackerRank and just work through some of the problems, but then actually once you find a problem, kind of look it up, see how other people have implemented, and that's a way you can kind of see what data structures folks are using, what algorithms folks are using. Because a lot of the time you learn about like a linked list just to pass an interview, and then you never ever use a linked list ever again. I think someone was actually mentioned. I think on Twitter somewhere, someone was saying that they were asked in an interview, what do you use a linked list for? And their response was, I use it for answering interview questions. That's it. Matthew Epi says, can someone put the name of that book in the chat?
Yeah, it's Beyond the Basic Stuff with Python, Best Practices for Writing Clean Code. And if you go to Al Swigert's website, which I can do really quick, one of the things that he does is he makes all of his books available online for absolutely nothing. Of course, if you get value from it, you should totally buy it. But if you cannot afford to buy books, then you should definitely take advantage of that. And he also does live streaming where he works on these books in real time, and he's a great resource for solving problems.
Cool. So I've just put a link to the book site, and then to
Sarah, can you do me a favor?
Mm-hmm.
Only for the benefit of testing, can you separate those validations into individual functions?
What do you mean?
So currently you have is valid is equal to this and these things. Like, I understand that they're one-liners, but if you were writing tests for these, what you would want to do is make sure that they are easily testable, which would mean that you have like validate column, and then
it's like duplicating code though.
Is it though?
Yeah.
In that case,
so I don't think you have to check for each different like thing here. Like, because is subpart valid, all it knows is it gets
is subpart valid
of...
is checking the, so yeah, you would just want to test this subpart valid and then you pass in. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
9 things.
Again, Jay doesn't read, so
no. I think it makes sense, and like I could definitely, if you just saw me waffling on this, I was like trying to figure out, well, I could make this a one-liner if I just like, because it's basically this and this and this is the Boolean response I want, but I want to have them on separate lines.
Yeah.
So I was like, what I ended up here was for readability, not necessarily for like, again, the Gulf sort of efficiency, which I don't really think is a good thing to do here. But this makes it clear what each is doing. But yeah. I'm using the same just validator function, which just says, because I think the slice is still going to give me an MP array back.
Okay.
I love, if there's anything to like practice with, because I think they are so useful, is list comprehensions, like all the I'm pretty sure I use them like one every 5 lines or something like that. No. But basically, this is a really compact way to basically say, I'll take every item in that array. So item for item in subpart if item is not equal to 0. So this gives me fairly concisely, without using any special numpy functions, which I could totally do. But this would work. I think it's a little bit more readable, but
I 100% agree with you. Also, I just got some weird notification saying my computer is going to restart in a few seconds, so I'm going to try to avoid that. But if I can't for some reason, then I'll jump back in.
Okay. So just a question on the test actually. So Jay, you're saying, should we be testing this is subpart valid?
Yes.
Should we be testing that? Just thinking about encapsulation and all that. Are we just exposing the is grid valid function? Or should we be testing this part of it? Because if I was building this like an OO way, I would have the subpart valid as private, because that's the implementation. And I'm not really testing the individual components of the implementation. I'm just testing the one public, which is the grid valid. That way I could completely rip out and change this anytime I wanted to.
I've never wanted my computer to restart so fast. So this is a, what are you in, because I'm trying to keep this in mind, Jay, this isn't a real coding thing, this is for an interview. I say yes. Jacob Kaplan Moss has this quote that says, any code that's not tested is inherently wrong by design. It is inherently failing by design. Even if it's private, even if you're going to swap it out, I think you test the situation that you're using, or the situation you're trying to validate. Like Sarah said, Sarah has all of these things happening, calling is subpart valid 3 times. I wouldn't necessarily test that is a set, going to be the same length as a list. I would say, given this numpy array that has these values, if I pass is subpart valid, am I getting the expected result? And so
I think,
sorry, go ahead. I was just looking at the comment of, should all code always be public? In Python, all of your code is public. You can find ways to get to all of the code. There is no private code by design. You can hide code. You can say, hey, don't make this visible in certain ways, but you cannot prevent a user that wants to, not be able to find that code. And a good way to do that is to just do help or vars and things like that. And you find pieces of code that you made private intentionally. using private namespacing in Python is more of just like telling the user, you shouldn't be worried about this.
Which by convention is usually prefacing, like if I didn't want somebody to be using is subpart valid, I would put an underscore at the beginning of the name. I think that's fairly common, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this would be my non-enforced but manner of communicating to a user. Please don't use this.
Yeah, this isn't for you.
But there's nothing I can do to stop someone from. Yeah. So I agree. We should test everything. Test all your assumptions. Test. Yeah.
Which is why I was suggesting the 3 separate functions, because I think there's also that philosophy of like if your function does more than one thing, then it needs to be more than one function. But I also understand in terms of readability, I like your solution better. I just wasn't sure what our testing space would be, but you know what, the great thing is we're at an hour, so we don't have to find out.
Yes, we are at time. There's probably someone else waiting to jump on the Twitch stream, so we don't get to finish this. It has taken a group of experts, well, an amateur in my case, and 2 experts, 3 hours to not implement one problem, but we've had a lot of great conversation, and this I think is one of the big things we want you to take away from this series is when you are solving these problems, that conversation is the most valid thing that you can have with the folks who are interviewing you. So thank you, Jay. Thank you, Sarah, for your time. Hopefully we'll try and get this code finished off and dropped up on GitHub. We have shared the link, but we'll get it dropped in the chat as well if you want to actually dig through the code. Thank you everyone who's joined us. Thank you for all your questions. You know, we're here at the Microsoft Reactor to help you learn, help you grow as developers. So I hope we've been able to answer as many of your questions as we can. Hope this was valuable to you. We're going to drop a survey link in the chat. Please fill in the survey. There's especially one question at the end, which is what else can we do? Free text box. Drop in there, you know, whether you want more of the same, what kind of things you want to learn, what kind of streams you want, any of your feedback about how we could create some more great content for you. But otherwise, thank you for joining us on the Microsoft Reactor today. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Sarah. I've had a lot of fun with both of you. I have learned a lot. And everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. See you all later.